Well, I'm very pleased to welcome you to this 24th annual Salem Speaks Up. Some of you have been here before, and we're happy that you're here tonight or this afternoon. And for some of you, it's the first time. But in both cases, we're hoping that people will feel comfortable coming forward during the open mic period, which will be after the break, and share any experiences you've had where your human rights have been violated or you have felt unsafe in our community. I have some things I want to share with you. When we started this 24 years ago, 1992, we weren't expecting to do it year after year. We were hoping that the situation would be better and it wouldn't be needed. But those of us who started it felt that there were a lot of things happening in Salem and other places that most of us who are white were not aware of. Or there are other people who are victims of discrimination that we're just not in close enough touch with to realize the problems they may be facing. And we were doing this to be supportive of the Human Rights Commission of the City of Salem, because we knew that there were people who didn't feel comfortable going to the commission to report something. And we got the idea of having an event with an open microphone where anyone could come forward and speak up. And sometimes we've had a lot of response, and other times I think people have been shy about coming forward. The Human Rights Commission did receive some complaints and took some action. I think it was about 20 years ago. In one case, it had to do, I think, with gay rights issues, but that wasn't okay with the powers that be in the city. So the role of the Human Rights Commission was changed, and the name was changed to Human Rights and Relations Advisory Commission, meaning that they could give advice to the city council or other officials, but not take action on their own. And that was very disappointing, because we need somebody in the community keeping an eye on these issues and bringing it to the attention of the people who can make some difference. We're very pleased at these events to have people from the police department, the sheriff's office, the school superintendent, any of those who are in that category, and city council member. Would you just raise your hand so we see that you're here? We appreciate that you're here. And we want you to listen to what's shared tonight and then do whatever you can in your capacity to make some changes if necessary. But we want everyone here to feel that responsibility of trying to make change for better human rights, especially in these troubled times. The Salem Speaks Up, the first one was organized by volunteers from 4 local civic groups: League of Women Voters, American Association of University Women, the YWCA, and the UN Association. Unfortunately, the YWCA is gone, but the 3 founding groups continue to do the planning for this event every year with a lot of support from the supporting groups, and you'll see them listed on the flyer. And several of them have displays out in that other room where you can look at things during the break. The schedule in general is that we're having these sort of general remarks now, and including the reading of the city's proclamation for Human Rights Day, and some information about UN Association issues of concern, and then Levy will share some of his own observations and experiences, and then we'll have a break for refreshments and looking at the things on display and talking to groups of people in different groups, and then come back, and the hope is that we'll keep a full hour for the open mic part of the program. I've been working on these issues most of my life, going back to my days as a graduate student at University of California at Berkeley, when I was doing research and writing papers about slavery, about discrimination, prejudice, about the tragic notion that some people are lesser than others, the idea that it's all right to have slaves, that there is superiority and inferiority in the human race. Slavery is not new. It was present in many places and still is, unfortunately. But in our experience in this country, there was the added misfortune that the slaves brought here were from Africa of a different color, which made them easily identifiable. If the slaves had been brought, stolen, captured from a European country and brought here as slaves, and then were later emancipated, in a generation or two, they would disappear into the rest of the population. But in this case, since they were from a different race and skin color is identifiable, that tragic stigma of inferiority has been passed down through many generations, so that people today are impacted by that big mistake, especially in this country, of enslaving people from Africa. Anyway, I was doing papers on that. I was doing a variety of things, civil rights marches, that kind of thing, going door to door in Oakland and Berkeley, talking about the need for fair housing laws. And then when Dick and I were wanting to adopt children, and I want to break here to say thank you to those of you who have expressed condolences on the passing of Dick in August. It's not easy to get used to living without your partner of 50 years, and I really appreciate the sympathy and condolences for myself and my daughters. My daughter Carmen and her son are sitting over there in the corner, and I'm happy they're here. Anyway, when we decided to adopt, we weren't looking for necessarily someone from another race, but we wanted to be open to that. And when we learned about Carmen and Marta and their parents being killed because of being Mayan Indian, indigenous in Guatemala, we believe in a rainbow world, and we felt that anyone should be able to live anywhere and be treated with respect and fairness. But as we became a mixed-race family, we experienced in a far more deep way what discrimination and prejudice are about. Being told you can't ride on the merry-go-round is just for white kids, or you can't go in the swimming pool at the YMCA, you'll infect it. That had a powerful effect on us. What can we do to change this? Because it's wrong. So that's what I've put most of my energy into all these years, and yet it doesn't seem to be better. In fact, in many ways, it seems worse. In 2010, the local president of the NAACP told me that they would like to give me their Pioneer Award for the work I'd been doing. And I told him I appreciated the honor, but I didn't feel comfortable because I felt a failure, really. I didn't feel I'd accomplished anything. I did accept the award and appreciate it and am grateful. But as I say, I think we're maybe in a worse place than we were back then. Looking back over the many years since Martin Luther King led people to try to make change through nonviolent means, I've come to realize how absolutely important that was. I think the changes that did happen were because of the nonviolence. The effort to look for the best in the other person and respond as positively as you can. And the amount of training, nonviolence that the young people, children, older people had back during those years is what made the difference. Learning how to accept bad treatment without fighting back, taking it into yourself, and trying to speak to the good part in the other person. Our good friend David Hartsoe, whom we've known for many years, he's a Quaker, he's a white man. He was early moved and motivated by racism and chose to go to a black university, Howard University. And while he was there, he took part in many sit-ins at lunch counters and other demonstrations. And he tells about a particular experience that he had at a People's Drug Store in Arlington, Virginia. It was a mixed-race group of students who were refused service. They stayed on for 2 days in spite of being spat upon and shoved and kicked and had lighted cigarettes put down their shirts. But they stayed there. And he describes, he says, late in the evening of the second day, I heard a voice behind me say, "You nigger lover, get out of this store in 2 seconds, or I'm going to stab this through your heart." I turned to see a man with the most terrible look of hatred I had ever seen. His eyes blazed, his jaw quivered, and his shaking hand held a switchblade knife pointed at my heart. Loving my enemy was suddenly more than just a discussion in Sunday school. For a fleeting moment, I doubted that Jesus actually meant to include this man among those who deserve to be loved. Then I felt grateful for the many hours of nonviolence training and role-playing we had engaged in. I tried my best to smile. Looking him in the eye, I said, "Friend, do what you believe is right, and I will still try to love you." Both his jaw and his hand dropped. Miraculously, he turned away and walked out of the store. I believe it is this kind of trying to turn things around, not responding with violence or hate, but trying to reach the better part of the other person that can make the change that we need. I think it was during these nonviolent reactions in the South during the Civil Rights Movement, when people were being attacked for demonstrating or boycotting, attacked with police dogs and water cannon, hoses, kicked and hurt, that it made a difference when people around the world could see this and begin to realize these people are more human than we are. And I think that is what has made the difference. When the Black Power movement rose and became popular with black people feeling that they were being treated as though they were weak and they should stand up and push back, Martin Luther King agreed with that and understood it, but he worried about it because he felt that that was giving up, because it would be impossible. Black power couldn't stand up to state law enforcement forces. So he stuck with his nonviolent training and tried to help people realize that could make the difference. The only way to get change, I think, is by reaching the hearts and minds of those in power and the general population by appealing to their better nature. I believe that white people in the U.S. need an awakening about what it is like to be a person of color. King says that being a black in America, this is a quote, means the pain of watching your children grow up with clouds of inferiority in their mental skies. It means having your legs cut off and then being condemned for being a cripple. Many whites are in denial about this, but we need to wake up. I look upon it as a white sickness that we grow up with. It comes to us, we don't even realize it. We're not aware of it. We don't realize there's a problem. But we need to turn that around. Dr. King's understanding is even more appropriate and needed today with the amount of hate and fear and white nationalism that have been unleashed recently. I think the real motto of the recent campaign was "Make America White Again." Events at Standing Rock make me ashamed to be a U.S. citizen. Peaceful people in prayer, wanting to be treated fairly, and attacked by water hoses and dogs, and a very strong law enforcement. A brutal reaction, I'm afraid. In his last full-length book, Where Do We Go From Here?, Dr. King talks about the situation this way. This is a quote. "A widely separated family inherits a house in which they have to live together. This is the great new problem of humankind. We have inherited a huge house, a great world house, in which we have to live together. Black and white, Easterner and Westerner, Gentile and Jew, Catholic and Protestant, Muslim and Hindu, a family unduly separated in ideas, culture, and interest, who, because we can never again live apart, must learn somehow to live with each other in peace. Nonviolent social change can make this possible as we try to look for the best in the person we don't agree with and try to help them reach for the better part of themselves. In this work, we must remember the three evils Dr. King warned about: poverty, racism, and militarism. They are interrelated and need our attention to counteract the greed and materialism and envy which are corroding our life in this country. Each of us is challenged to figure out what we can do to turn things around so that love and caring can replace fear and hatred. I'm wearing a safety pin. Others are. You may know about it. It's an effort to, the safety pin, anybody wearing a safety pin is saying, I want to be your ally if you are suffering some abuse or if you are feeling at risk. And this one, there's a little sign that says safe place. And it means that if you feel vulnerable, if you are being subjected to bad treatment, come and stand by me and I'll try to help. We don't know if we can help. But if thousands of people here in Salem were wearing this kind of little sign, just a safety pin or a little sign like this, Peter Rigel has some extra copies if you want the little yellow sign that says safe place, that can maybe start to turn things around. I want to introduce Levy again now. And, no, I'm sorry. Next, I want to ask our mayor-elect to share the Human Rights Proclamation for the city of Salem. Yeah, there's, so, thank you.
Well, good afternoon. It's a real honor to follow Rose with both her pertinent and moving remarks. First, with your permission, Rose, I do want to again acknowledge School Superintendent Christy Perry, Deputy Superintendent Kelly Carlisle, as well as my colleague, City Councilman Tom Anderson, also Lieutenants Mike Bennett and Lieutenant Upkus, as well as County Clerk Bill Burgess. I appreciate that both our police department as well as appointed and elected officials are here to listen today. I hope folks will speak up at this event. This is one of many I have given this proclamation at, or a rendition of this, so hopefully we'll hear some helpful and interesting and moving remarks. Let me read for you the proclamation. Whereas December 10th marks the 68th anniversary of the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the General Assembly of the United Nations, and whereas the preamble to the Charter of the United Nations reads, to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person, and whereas the preamble of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states, disregard and contempt for human rights have resulted in barbarous acts which have outraged the conscience of mankind, and the advent of a world in which human beings shall enjoy freedom of speech and belief and freedom from fear and want has been proclaimed as the highest aspiration of the common people. And whereas the city of Salem, and as the mayor-elect, as a member of the city council, and as a member of this community, I share in the community's concern as we see our fellow human beings suffer the scourge of inequity and discrimination, and we work alongside each of you in standing up against bigotry and taking action in support of human rights. And whereas the city of Salem, by definition, the city of peace, supports freedom for all its people and recognizes the need to address issues of racism, poverty, homelessness, discrimination based on religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, and more, while knowing that in our global society, no person is free until all persons are free. And now, therefore, I, Chuck Bennett, Mayor-elect of the City of Salem, Oregon, do hereby proclaim December 10th, 2016 as Human Rights Day in Salem and urge all people of Salem to respect this day as a stepping stone to equity and inclusion for all people of our city, our nation, and of the world, dated this 10th day of September, 2016. Chuck Bennett, Mayor-elect. Thank you.
Is this mic off? Mic on? Can you hear me? Good. Well, I'd like to introduce Bill Hayward now, who will talk a bit about the United Nations Association. Thanks.
First of all, I'd like to mention that did a little research on this, and it surprised me the Human Rights Day is actually celebrated all around the world. India has incredibly active groups throughout the country celebrating today on December 10th, and many other countries. So it is amazing that it's not just within the United States. I wanted to indicate that our United Nations Association here in Salem, we have a chapter here as well as there's chapters in cities throughout the country. Because of the recent very contentious presidential election we just have been through, we decided to draft a letter to our President-elect Donald Trump indicating some concerns we have about human rights. And I'm going to just highlight that letter in our comments that I'm sharing with you today. Starting out, Dear President-elect Trump, I'm writing to you on behalf of the Salem, Oregon chapter of the United Nations Association. Today, December 10th, people all around the world are observing Human Rights Day, which commemorates the day in 1948 when the General Assembly of the United Nations adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Here in Salem, Oregon, we commemorate Human Rights Day with an event called Salem Speaks Up, where citizens and organizations are encouraged to speak up about concerns on human rights. Our United Nations Association knows of no human rights issues more important than those that have been put at risk during the recent presidential election campaign. In this regard, we urge you to repudiate and rescind pledges and policy proposals you made in the course of the campaign that, if implemented by your administration, would violate fundamental human rights and be deeply damaging to millions of people in the United States and abroad. Accordingly, we believe it imperative that you explicitly retract the following proposals that would violate or threaten basic human rights under U.S. law and international legal obligations of the United States. As I say, I'm just highlighting some of the areas that are included in our letter. The first one has to do with reinstating torture and targeting civilians. Torture and other cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment or punishment violates U.S. law and long-recognized protections under international law, including the 1949 Geneva Conventions. We urge you to ban such practices, including waterboarding, and state unequivocally that your administration will never use torture or mistreatment of prisoners, and you will abide by U.S. and international laws banning such practices. We go on to say, reinstating torture and other methods of coercive interrogation also undermine U.S. national security. Past use of torture by the United States continues to serve as a rallying cry for anti-U.S. armed groups. Also, one thing that concerns us, during the campaign, you also suggested that families of terrorist suspects could be targeted by lethal strike operations. Attacking family members of terrorism suspects violates international legal protections for civilians and is a form of collective punishment. We hope that your administration would not engage in such practices. Another area I want to touch on that's, I know, a concern to the Salem community, dealing with immigrants. Your proposal to deport or incarcerate 2 to 3 million people who have had some contact with the criminal justice system would put the U.S. on a course of massive human rights violations. Experience has shown that when immigration agencies try to deport millions of criminals, often with minor or no actual convictions, people with deep ties in the U.S. who contribute to their families and communities pay the price. The risks of due process and community safety are also severe. Further, your proposal to ramp up immigration enforcement using local police would have the effect of promoting racial profiling, fear, distrust of police, and ultimately damaging public safety. And finally, your proposal violates U.S. immigration law. Another area I want to touch on is extreme vetting, burdensome asylum seeker and immigration registration requirements, and global refugee policy. This also has implications for our local community. Your proposals to require Muslim immigrants, to register with the government and to subject certain nationals to extreme vetting procedures would cause serious harm. Any kind of registration program would likely do harm to millions of law-abiding people and families who live and work in our communities for no apparent reason other than discrimination based on religion or national origin. U.S. immigration, refugee resettlement, asylum procedures already include very rigorous forms of security screening. Turning now to refugee resettlement policy, the U.S. for decades has been a global leader in the refugee resettlement. We strongly urge you not to undermine the leadership the U.S. has shown in this area by cutting back on the number of refugees we accept in the United States. A sudden attempt to curb the number of refugees coming into our country could disrupt the entire global system of refugee resettlement and cause other countries to cut back as well. And finally, an area we want to talk about is encouraging hate speech and bias crimes. When asked, you have publicly disavowed support for white nationalists. However, your appointment recently of Stephen Bannon as your strategist and senior counselor shows a reaffirmation rather than a disavowal of racist, misogynist, and xenophobic rhetoric as characterized in your presidential campaign. Regardless of whether you believe Bannon personally holds such views, his appointment to a high-level position sends the wrong message that your administration will tolerate, perhaps even endorse, and encourage views that might incite violence, discrimination, and hatred against marginalized populations. And we end by concluding that as president, you will have the heavy responsibility to prevent the enactment of dangerous proposals and anti-human rights commitments that were made during the course of the presidential campaign. A first step will be to unequivocally retract such proposals, condemn hateful rhetoric and acts undertaken in your name, and commit to respecting the obligations of the United States under international human rights and humanitarian law. Sincerely, Bill Hayden, President, United Nations Association, Salem, Oregon.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you to a lot of other people who have helped us. I especially want to say thanks to Suzanne Kaltwasser, who was heading up the plans for this year and then has had a lot of sickness and family problems that she wasn't able to come at all today. So we really appreciate Suzanne's work, but everybody who is here and taking part. And again, I want to emphasize, we want to encourage people after the break to come forward and share your own experiences and observations. I want to remind everybody, be sure you've signed in. We like to keep a record of who's here. We'll be having evaluation forms we hope you'll fill out because that helps us in planning another time. And we have a resource list. I think they're blue and green on that sign-in table for you to pick up, places where you might get help here locally. So now we're going to hear from Levy, and then we'll have a break for refreshments and looking at the displays and visiting, and then gather back. And I hope we got started a little late. I hope we can still hold out to have a full hour of the open mic. So I'd like to introduce Levy Herrera. Many of you know him and all of his good work here in the local community and at Mano a Mano and in many organizations. So Levy's going to share some of his thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you, Rose, and thank you everyone for being here. This has been a very interesting period, to say the least. One of the communities that I represent is the immigrant community. I came into Salem in the early 90s I came in as an undocumented immigrant. But back in those days, there was a possibility of fixing your status without having to leave the country. So my family took advantage of that. So I became a U.S. citizen, and I just a year ago, my wife and I had our first babies, twins, and they're wonderful kids, and I'm happy that they're going to be growing up in Salem. But this campaign has been very different, was very different than others before. I was active in 2000. I remember how engaging that campaign was, but this was different. And I think the most disappointing thing for me personally was seeing in the media people trying to normalize the language that was used. There is a difference between freedom of speech and engaging in hate speech. Those are two different things. And what we saw, my child, my wife is Japanese, so one of my daughter has much lighter skin than I do, and in the right light, her hair looks blonde, and my son looks more Japanese. So they are going to have a choice of which community they can connect to. But they are of Mexican descent because of me. And when in the campaign, the words were used that the Mexican immigrants were criminals, I felt like that was directed at my kids. That when Judge Curiel was being accused that because of his Mexican descent, he could not be trusted. I felt like that was being said about my kids too. And there were many other things that were said that people were going to be rounded up. So now what we're seeing after the election, when we saw the results, is a lot of people were very, very scared. Because unlike many people, if you were undocumented and you heard, if I'm elected, I'm going to round you all up. We're going to get you out of the country immediately. And we're going to build a wall so none of you can come back. That wasn't just hyperbole or just words. That was a threat. And now the power had been handed to this person to make good on that threat. So we have been dealing for the last 3 weeks, and by we, I mean a lot of the immigrant rights organizations have been listening to people tell us about little incidents where, thank God, there hasn't been any violence, but harassment of people being told, well, now you have to start packing your bags because our side won, and now you have to leave. And we've been having to tell people to calm them down as much as possible. But I've also been running into people who say, this is not going to happen, don't worry. The deportations are not going to happen. None of that is going to happen. But that doesn't take away the fear from the mom who's undocumented, who has a child who's a U.S. citizen, who asks, so are they going to take me away, and what's going to happen to my child? Is my child going to have to grow up in Mexico? I left Mexico because of how difficult it was. Why would I want to take my child back there? No. So there has been a lot of real pain, a lot of real fear. And perhaps one of the worst things about this situation is that so many people, so many groups of us were attacked, that you could have the choice of not caring. Because, for instance, I'm a male, but when the comment was made that if a woman had to use abortion, that they needed to be punished, I could say, well, that doesn't affect me. When the message was said that, we have to start vetting Muslims and there's going to be a registry, I could say, well, I'm not a Muslim, so that's not going to affect me. So what we've been telling people is, if you're an undocumented immigrant, we have an issue, and we have to make sure that we're protecting this community. But remember that other communities were attacked. It's not just our community. There are so many of us that were attacked. And now we've handed the power to people. If they choose to, they could do it. There's a list out there of about 79 actions on immigration the president could take on his first day in office. And none of them include raising a deportation force or building a wall. But they would completely destroy our communities. And in those 79 things, if you're not undocumented, you would never know they happened. So one of the things that I really want to stress is for us to understand the intersectionality, the connection of our identities. We're all here because we're all members of the Salem community. We're all here because we're all Oregonians and we're all Americans. We bring our different identities, but we're all part of one community. And if my community is being attacked, I hope that you would raise up and defend us, and that we do the same for everybody. And I think that was one of the things that felt like it got lost in the conversations, because we saw so many people that I thought they were good people, and I'm sure you might have had that feeling too, but then you heard very hateful things coming out, and it was okay because a presidential candidate said it, and because that presidential candidate got elected, it's now okay, and we're hearing comments coming out of kids who, by any right, they should not have that kind of hateful speech, but they're absorbing and they're reflecting what they're hearing around them. So there's an individual responsibility, but as a community, we need to come out and say, we welcome everybody that's willing to contribute to this community. So if one of us is attacked, we're gonna defend all of us. And I'm feeling reassured because I'm getting a lot of those comments. And they're good individually, but I think tonight is one opportunity when we can make it public. And the last thing I'll say is, I always remember a quote by the founder of the National Council of La Raza, which is the largest Hispanic or Latino civil rights group in the country. And he used to say that he would get accused that his group had a radical agenda. And they would always say, well, the National Council of La Raza, it says La Raza, so that's controversial. And they have a radical agenda. And he said, yes, we have a radical agenda. And our agenda is very radical. And it is that we want education for all children. We want to make sure all children have an education. And that's radical because our kids have been excluded. So today, having that position that we are all members of a community, that we all belong, it feels like that's now a radical position. And we have to fight against the urge to normalize hate and say, this is okay. Hate is never okay, no matter who it's directed against. And what I urge you is to stay informed and find ways that you individually and as groups can support your neighbors and make sure that we keep Salem as a great place to live. Thank you all for coming out today.
I'm here to let you know that Move to Amend is alive and well. And, the most help that we get from people is mainly from women. And I'd like to point out that, and the men will be unhappy about this, but women are the most intelligent gender. I don't know. How do you feel about that, ladies? Good. Okay. I know that I inherited mine from my mother, But in any case, we get a great deal of help from women. They're usually the outstanding volunteers. To let you know where we stand, we now have 17 states, ours included, that have sent resolutions to Congress requesting a reversal of Citizens United v. the Federal Elections Commission. Some of these requests go further in declaring that corporations have no constitutional rights. They never were intended to, and somehow they have acquired them, and in some case, falsely and fraudulently. We all need to get on the same page in regards to this personhood issue. The supposition that corporations, which are artificial persons, have the same rights under the Constitution that natural persons, you and I, have. You shouldn't be surprised to learn that even though 17 states have requested it, there is a resolution, HJR 48, in Congress that points to the necessary constitutional amendment, but that has less than 25 co-sponsors, and it's been there for over 2 years. In this case, the states can precipitate a convention. In other words, we're not getting what we want from Congress. There is another way of getting it. And we can precipitate a convention if 2/3 of the states request it for the same subject areas. So far, over 700 such requests have been sent to Congress, but we still don't have a convention. The calling of such a convention has been resisted by the establishment since the very beginning. In modern times, opponents often resort to Lawrence Tribe, who is a Harvard law professor who wrote the book on constitutional law, literally. But evidently, a lot of people haven't read this book, especially the ones that say that an Article 5 convention cannot be held. It's very dangerous. People are going to get together and change the entire Constitution. We won't have an America anymore, United States of America. Weber and Perry wrote a book entitled Unfounded Fears, which effectively puts to rest this argument. But, you know, those who rely on Lawrence Tribe haven't read his book, because he says at one point, he adopts the attitude, or yes, what Madison said about it, which is, well, actually, first of all, Alexander Hamilton said that Congress, okay, he quotes, Congress shall call a convention. That's if 2/3 of the states request it. And nothing in this particular is left to the discretion of that body. That's the end of Congress's involvement in it, except once we come up with some amendments, then they can decide where it's to be ratified, either in the state legislatures or in constitutional conventions, which is the way that, in every state, which is the way that our original Constitution was ratified. They called separate conventions in every state. In any case, Madison, which is the attitude he adopts here, let's see. Okay, here it is. The Article 5 convention device is appropriately utilized only in extraordinary circumstances. That's Madison speaking. And this is what Lawrence Tribe says is his attitude. He quotes Madison. When a determined Congress runs roughshod over the interests of the states or stubbornly refuses to submit for possible ratification an amendment widely desired by the states. So anyway, I'll leave that view there. I am advocating for an Article 5 convention. Some people say, well, this is a right-wing thing. No, it's not. It's for the people. It's the people's last resort against a recalcitrant and non-responsive Congress. And that's what my organization is working to overcome. And we have made great progress. In fact, when we first started out, you wouldn't have known what personhood meant if I said that to you.
Thank you for.
Now you do.
Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna try to be as respectful of everybody.
Okay.
But we do have we want to get
Okay.
through a lot of
One
people.
more statement, Levy.
Actually, yeah.
I have a resolution here that you might want to grab
Yes,
in the
please.
back. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have two people, so, online, yeah. And then we're gonna have, some-
Hi, everybody. I'm Barry Lee Quinn. I work with Bill Hayden on the UN Association Salem chapter. I got some special information available just for the audience today. We have new neighbors in Salem. They are the refugee families that have come over the last year. I was one of the organizers that had the January 20th Refugee Family Forum at the Luke Auditorium that brought over 300 people out. Nobody believed it could be done. It was done. This is from Catholic Charities, one of the leading organizations in town. And there were 95 individuals, refugees from other countries that arrived in Salem this year. 44 were adults, 51 were minors, a total of 27 families. Here's the countdown, sort of a mini census for us. Somalia, 7 cases. Democratic Republic of the Congo, 6 cases. Iraq, 4. Iran, 1. Syria, 3. Central African Republic, 3. Ivory Coast, which used to be a French colony, 1. Afghanistan, 1. And finally, Sudan, 1. That means 18 persons or 18 families came from Africa, and the rest were basically Asia. There were other cases that originally arrived with Catholic Charity cases, however. 2 families arrived in Salem, but later moved to other locales within a few weeks of their arrival. All the school-age individuals, which mean 51 minors, have been enrolled in our public schools and are progressing nicely in their mastery of English. I'm still trying to find out about the employment statistics because some of the more oppositional elements in our society think that refugees automatically are on the dole, but a lot of them have gotten jobs and employment, and they all are covered by the Oregon Health Plan from day one to make sure that they stay healthy and they don't drain our medical system. So those are the main things. I'm hoping also that we have some special events for Martin Luther King Day, followed by, and this is information for the historians among us, February 5th is the birthday of Rosa Parks, and March 31st, Cesar Chavez, the leader of the migrant farm workers in California. So put that on your calendars as days to celebrate other ethnicities in our midst. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sandra Hernandez. I am the coordinator of Latinos Unidos Siempre, a nonprofit youth-led organization here in Salem. We have done social justice since 1996 and are the youth component of Mano Mano. I am here today because I want to speak up on an issue affecting our community. In 2014, a state measure that was meant to give undocumented individuals the opportunity to obtain a driver's card failed to pass. This was known as Measure 88. During the fight, our brothers and sisters who were canvassing, advocating, and educating for this measure did not only face opposition, much of the time based on ignorance, but were also forced to see and hear the hate and discrimination from many of our local residents. Illegal, alien, criminals, freeloaders were some of the very few terms these fighters heard during their effort to pass this measure. Where some of the, the failure of this measure taught us that our community, our state, even while self-proclaimed progressive, feeds hate and fear to our people. People in the community who are just as deserving as any other human being. People who are hardworking, people who are contributing, most of the time, much more than anyone else to this economy. Now our families continue to live in fear. Our families and children, students, parents, mothers, fathers, face potential criminalization due to the lack of access to transportation. We have one of the largest school districts here in the state, and our population of students of color keeps growing. Right now, in Northeast Salem, two of our high schools have a majority student of color population, especially Latino students. This means that this measure is widely and deeply being felt right now. So I'm not here to gain your sympathy. I am here to gain your support. I am here to remind you that our families have been here, they will be here, and they will stay. I'm here to ask to form allies, to form support. We need educators, people educating other people to make change. After these elections, or these past elections, our communities of color will be facing much adversity. It's nothing new. We've been facing it for many years. It just has continued. And when we were just barely feeling progress, now we're feeling that we have to fight. We were feeling that we were walking, and now we're feeling as if we have to push in a full, surrounded by a crowd. Institutional oppression is like a bucket of invisible bricks falling over you over and over again. And most of the time, you don't understand why or what's going on, why it's so hard to move. That's why I ask again, speak up. Speak up today, tomorrow, the day after, and take action. Speak up until all of our community, all people in our community live with dignity, are given proper social and legal support. Institutional barriers are only broken down when people come together, when we create unity, and we form grassroots movements. And remember, a lot of these people that we view as immigrants have come from ancestors who have been on this land before these nationalistic borders were created. Remember that it is not just our family's immigrant status that have brought us under this oppressive state, but it is years and years of oppression and of a made-up history that didn't belong to us. So thank you for listening, and I hope that everyone here takes a minute to think about the families in our community and continues to take action and listen to everyone who's affected by the upcoming policies. Thank you.
So just a reminder to encourage individuals to also come up, so not just organizational representatives. And if you do want to, please move up to the front row so I know who's wanting to speak. So go ahead.
Thank you, Larry. I'm Kirk Leonard. I'm with Healthcare for All Oregon, I think. But obviously, I've given away my subject here. Just a few years ago here in Salem, I was without health care, without a physician, went to the Salem Free Clinic. 2 hours in the cold, this was in November, waiting outside to get a decent place in line, and then 2 more hours inside. This was in West Salem at a middle school, waiting to get everything set up and get in to visit. And there was a commotion and further down in the line, and I learned later that a woman had died waiting to get medical care. And so it's, that and a lot of other reasons, it's really important to me that we pay attention to it. Article 25 of the UN Declaration of Human Rights includes health care. It's not like our Bill of Rights. It's got a lot more in it. I recommend you read it if you haven't. It's an excellent document. Could be updated, but health care is there, plain and simple. We are here representing the organization, have a table right in the front, and I would appreciate people stopping by and signing up, joining us. We're very active in the legislature every year and should have some more amazing things happening this coming year because of bills that we've had passed in prior sessions. So if you want to help with that, you're certainly welcome. And we have speakers that can come to your events anytime you want to consider health, single payer is what we're about, Medicare for all. And we just know we're going to get there sooner than later. Right now we're doing the Saskatchewan strategy, which is a province or a state at a time, because, well, gee, we don't expect to see it nationally anytime real soon, even though this president-elect has said he thought it would be a good idea. It's unlikely he's going to be able to push that one through either, along hopefully with a whole bunch of other stuff that he's talked about. Namaste.
Hello, my name's Phil. I'm a teacher. I'm privileged enough to teach a group of people who are too busy to be here tonight. They're teen parents, and they inspire me every day. I mean, to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning as a teenager, get a beautiful baby ready, get that baby on the bus for sometimes an hour, get them to school, which is challenging. And I've got to say, they're really stressed out right now. They're really they're concerned. They have fears about their future. They're aware enough to know that the climate and society is asking a lot of questions about what type of support, what type of people are going to be protected, and what type of people are going to be welcome. I'm very proud of what we do in our public schools. I think we do a great job. It'd be nice if we had some more resources to do it with, but it's not just about our public schools, it's about our whole society. It's about bringing people into our society and making sure they feel included, making sure that they have an opportunity to speak up, making sure that we're holding meetings at times and places where those voices can be heard, that we're asking people and we're giving them the confidence to speak out and that we want to hear. Teen parents get so much advice, so much judgment. And they get support, but it often comes with advice and judgment. And I can tell you, like, it's overwhelming. They're trying hard, and they inspire me every day. And I wish they had a place where their stories could really be told. And I wish they felt more confident. But when they come to school, it's amazing. And I want to make sure they're welcome everywhere, because they're some of the most amazing people I know.
I want to take somebody from this side, and then we'll go back over here. Sorry.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aldo Solano. Actually, I live in Woodburn. I lived in Salem a few years. But I am undocumented, so let's just put that out there. So I'll let you imagine wild as to what I must be feeling after the election results. But I'm actually here to talk to you about an issue that I'm working with. I work as a health equity organizer for the Oregon Latino Health Coalition. And healthcare, in my opinion, is a human right. But right now, we have about at least 17,600 children in the state of Oregon that are excluded from OHP. These are children, by the way. I know we all care about healthcare, and we all have issues with the healthcare system, the current one, and what's been brought into and what's going to happen to it, given the results of the election and everything. But right now, an issue for me that's really important is making sure that all these children who are excluded from OHP, or Oregon children, have the ability and the opportunity to thrive in school. And by that, in order to do that, they need to be healthy kids to be able to succeed in those classrooms. So again, as I said, I work for the Oregon Latino Health Coalition. We will be introducing legislation in the upcoming session here. So this is a great opportunity for me to talk about the issue the campaign that we're going to be running. And I want to give you the opportunity to really support really tangible change that we can make in Oregon, so that Oregon can be a beacon of hope in this dark, dark national atmosphere of politics and hate that we find ourselves in. Most recently, our issue was included in the governor's recommended budget, which is a huge, huge victory for us. That just lets you know that the governor and the state as a whole is ready to put kids first in their health care, so that we can have an Oregon that thinks about our children and cares about the future, because our children are the future. As an undocumented person, I used to be one of those undocumented kids that whenever I got sick, I couldn't go to the doctor. It was always, you know, don't join sports. So if you join sports, make sure you don't get injured, or take your vitamins so you don't get sick, because we can't go to the doctor. We can't afford it. We don't even qualify for any type of programs. So right now, I'm really fighting for those almost 18,000 kids across the state of Oregon that don't have even the opportunity to receive any sort of health care. So please, if you would like to support our campaign, I will be right over there or wherever you need me to be. We're looking for different allies and supporters to help us to pressure our legislators, make sure that they vote the right way so that we can get this through and give all children in Oregon the opportunity to thrive in school and in life. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Sandra Gangle, and I have worked with people from various minority groups for many years. I taught English as a second language to the refugees from Cambodia and Vietnam back in the 70s. Those people now, 40 years later, are grandparents, many of them. Their children have gone through the schools. They are now very effective people in the community. Many of them have gone on to college and have become professional people. What would our community be like without the refugees that come and are educated and are able to then be producing members of our society? I was pleased to hear that we now have some families from Syria, and I do hope that they will be eligible, they will be able to get some English as a second language teaching and some help from the community with finding work and being welcomed into neighborhoods, because that is so critical, that they don't feel alone, that they don't feel like they are separate and apart and unliked and distrusted and feared. If you are a member of a church or any social organization or just a neighbor, reach out, be a friend. They are not going to harm you. They will be very pleased to be welcomed. Then after I taught, I became a lawyer, and I had the privilege of representing people back in the 80s and 90s who had been the victims of discrimination in the employment setting, in education, in social services, all various settings, also in housing. And it was a privilege that we had a legal right to file a claim and to be represented in a court setting and to get the facts out so that those people could get a remedy and go on with their lives without being discriminated against. I hope that under the next administration that those civil rights laws will absolutely be enforced and will not be ignored. And certainly we should all be willing to speak to our representatives in the state legislature, in the federal government, in our senators, our congresspeople, and tell them, be sure that the civil rights laws are enforced and are not ignored, because it's so important that they be respected and enforced. The last thing I want to say is I am here really tonight because I have become a grandmother to an African-American 5-year-old beautiful girl. And my daughter and her husband went to Georgia to pick her up when she was 4 days old. And I've been enjoying my new role as grandmother for the last 5 years. I want to tell you that although she doesn't live here, she lives in another community that is largely white. She, at her tender age of 5 years old, has already experienced bigotry and name-calling and fighting and mistreatment and unfairness on the part of teachers in her preschool. I mean, it's unbelievable how clueless people are. Parents need to tell their children how to deal with people that look different and their grandchildren and accept the differences so that we don't have the feeling that it's okay to make bigoted and racist comments to others. Also, if you're a teacher or an administrator of the school district, if there's an argument, if there's a fight on the playground between two kids who look different from each other, don't automatically assume that it's the dark-skinned one that caused the argument in the first place. because it's very easy to make that conclusion. It's got to be fair, and sometimes that's a difficult role to play, to be the neutral, the mediator that looks at the kids and determines what was really going on and what generated the little dispute that you have just observed. In closing, I would like to read to you a few little comments that have been made by some very important, famous people that I'm sure you'll recognize, who have all experienced some prejudice and bias in their past. The first is Shaquille O'Neal. He says that when he was a kid, he was 6'4" by the time he was 11. He says, kids always called me names, nasty names like Shaquilla the gorilla. When I started playing basketball, everything changed. They were able to admire me instead of laughing at me. Basketball saved my life. And then he talks about going to basketball camp, and he said kids were the best of the game from all over the country. And all of a sudden, he was afraid that maybe he couldn't stack up. Maybe because of his race, he wouldn't be able to be as good as he wanted to be. So he talked to his parents, and he said, my father was brash. He said, don't walk around with your head down. Don't give up. Don't be embarrassed about yourself. Stand up and fight. His mother had a different approach. She said, you must fulfill your dreams while there's still room for you to do so. Attack them with a full head of steam. There's no opportunity like now. This is the time you can show people. And he says that those words got to him, and he snapped into reality, and he said, I just suddenly decided I was going to really go for it and be the best. Then Oprah Winfrey, I'm sure you know who she was. It is.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Well, at any rate, this is a great book. It has words of a lot of people that are well known in the culture that are kind of very inspirational to give people ways to deal with feelings of inferiority or prejudice. And but if you're on the side that is apt to be prejudicial, by all means, find ways to be welcoming and to not indicate or not in any way be discriminatory. Thank you.
And then we have somebody here in the middle, and is there anybody else? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Ross Schwartzendruber, and I live just out of town here. I have 3 kids going to Salem Kaiser School District, and I had a couple stories to tell you about them. I have twins in last year, and they speak 2 languages. They speak German and English. And one day my son came home and he said, yeah, Dad, I don't know what happened today, but five of my classmates today told me that I'd be the perfect Nazi if I just had blonde hair and blue eyes, just because he speaks German. All right, now he was taken care of by the principal. The principal, dealt with that right away. But what I'm trying to say to you is we are living in a time of white supremacy. We are seeing the 4th wave of the white supremacists in America. And I can go by every single wave that's come through Oregon. The first one started in 1860 when 1/3 of the Oregonians voted for a slave state. So 1/3 of all the descendants that are surrounding you right now wanted the Pacific Coast to be a slave state. And I can give you all the info you want on that. The second time around, in the 20s, they actually got a governor into the Capitol. And they passed the only Klan legislation in the U.S. that made public education compulsory so that they could do away with Catholic schools. That happened in 1924. Also in 1924, at the state capitol, there was a Klan march. 1,500 people showed up, and there was cross burning. Okay, I'm involved with a nonprofit here in town. We do historic tours of downtown, and I encourage you to come along. I'll show you where the Japanese laundry was confiscated in World War II and where the Klan death threat was nailed to a door that's still there on State Street in the 20s. And of course, the owner told him to get lost and open up his own barbecue shop. So thumbs up for there. And also, we'll go down to where the Calpuyans got their burial grounds taken away, and we built a nice little carousel. So we are surrounded by white supremacists, and that's just happened. Okay, so everything you hear from our president right now and all of his buddies, look at the action. Ignore everything he says. All right, look at the action. Everything, every tweet is there to confuse you. He makes confusing things every day. All right, statements. And I go also volunteer with a group going over to Germany. This last time we went with high schoolers. We visited in Munich. It's called the DocuCentrum. And basically, it's a building dedicated to remembering how Hitler took over Munich. And it is very, very, it really, really impressed me. The one thing that impressed me the most, it's a 4-story new building built right on the Nazi headquarters. And it said, any of this could have been avoided if somebody would have stood up and said something. And that's what I'm doing right now, people. I'm saying something. And it goes all the way in national politics, all the way down here. And if you think it's a Democrat or Republican issue, you're wrong. This is a economic control issue. This is keeping you poor while other people are getting rich. And the biggest impact locally this has is in our school districts with testing. That is a segregationalist tactic to put down people of color. These tests were developed in the eugenics period in the 20s, standardized testing, and it is only to segregate, and I have done all the number crunching on the SBAC scores, and it's not looking good. Almost every metric of disadvantage, whatever they would call those people, you know, everybody is being affected, and it's negative percentages, 3 to 4% in the last 2 years. We've got 2 years of SBAC testing. We spent $10 million for that, and all it's doing is making people be able to say, well, I don't want those people living here because they're going to take our test scores down. It's real estate based. And I really hope you guys take a look at that. Show up at your school board meeting. Make sure you know that everything coming out of the president's mouth right now is to confuse you so he can pick your pocket.
Thank you.
Yes, please. Thanks.
So we've got enough people on the list to talk, so I want to make sure that we get through all of them. So we got somebody here, and we got you back there, and then we've got back over here, and then.
Hi, my name is Luis. I'm going to share an experience that my family went through here in Salem and then move on to a project that I'm working on here with Maricruz. I'll try to be brief. So my parents came here from Mexico, from Michoacan, a couple decades ago, so we're more recent immigrants here. And my mom, just go into it, my mom had this experience at a bank here in town. Actually, it was a Wells Fargo, and I believe it was the one right here. And she went to the bank one time, and she was going to deposit some money. She had some money, I don't know where it came from, paycheck or something, but she went to deposit some money. She had a couple $100 bills. And when she went to go deposit that money, somebody came up to her and said, we need you to come to the back. And so they went to the back, and my mom doesn't speak English. She had no idea what was happening. She's used to coming in, giving money, getting a receipt, going out. But she was taken to the back, and she was there for about an hour or so before the police came. And what resulted of this is that the bank teller who was speaking to her thought that it was stolen money or counterfeit money. And so my mom was there for about an hour waiting for the police, and then she spoke with the police. And you know, at the end of all of this, it resulted that the money was legit. So you know, it wasn't counterfeit, it wasn't fake, it was real, you know, real money. Yet, I don't know if it was because of the color of her skin, if it was because of her nationality, or if it was because of her lack of English, these people thought that she was a criminal who was there doing illegal things. So that happened. And I want to connect that to recently, the words of the president-elect, who came out saying all Mexicans are criminals. So because of that, I want to connect that to a project that we're working on here with Maricruz, which is called the Purple DACA Letters campaign. And what this campaign aims to do is to raise awareness of specifically undocumented youth here in our communities, to show people that these undocumented youth are here and they're giving positive contributions to the community. They're not criminals, as President-elect is painting them to be, or as this person assumed my mother was in that situation. So this campaign, we're asking people to write letters in support of undocumented youth or youth who are participating in the DACA program, which is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. Letters to support them, letters to talk about their experiences if you are a DACA recipient or if you know somebody who is. So we're asking people to write letters in support of those people so that we can send those to our legislators, representatives here in the state and even nationally to support these students, or these youth, undocumented youth, and also to try to save the DACA program, which is, of course, one of the things that President-elect has promised to take away within his first 100 days. So if you want to learn more about that campaign, our Facebook page is Purple DACA Letters, which is DACA, Purple DACA Letters. Or you could also send us an email to purpledacaletters@gmail.com. We'll be sending out more information about that. And like us on Facebook so you can get updates on that and learn how to participate. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I'm short and I really don't like microphones. My name is Shelliswa Bushnell Cryer. I am a lawyer and former law professor at Willamette. There's lots of stories of discrimination I could share or what have you. My family and I have been in Salem for about 7 or 8 years. My son passed away last year, and it was interesting listening to the person who spoke about speaking German, because my son learned German. He insisted on having a German exchange student, and it was really interesting when that student's family came back and visited us. It was during the primaries, and Bernie Sanders was running, and he was just astounded at how odd his friends in West Salem felt about the things that Bernie was talking about, like universal health care, so on and so forth, because those are things that are common for them. And so just kind of listening to that history and the perceptions they have now was kind of interesting. But I mean, my son's been called the N-word at school before. One of my other sons was found suspicious at the bus stop and followed by someone until the cops arrived, who, thankfully that went okay for him, that particular thing. And my older son passed away last year, and one of the things that was interesting, or heartbreaking, really, knowing that they've had experiences, and I'm originally from Louisiana, so racist experiences are not anything new. But I came across some of the different things that he wrote. He was a poet, and I didn't quite realize just how deeply the racism that he had experienced here had affected him. One of the things that he wrote was a letter to black men, and about how terrible it was to be a black male because he felt so invisible. This was a young man who, when he passed away at his memorial, there were literally about 200 people at his memorial. He had friends in China. He spoke German and Chinese. He had friends in Germany, he had friends in China, and just a plethora of friends here and across the United States. So for him to still feel invisible was heartbreaking. The main reason I really wanted to get up and speak was not so much to share that, but really just to give you some thoughts to take with you going forward. If any of you guys went to the women's peaceful gathering a few weeks ago. Some of this will be a little repetition for you. But what I really want to emphasize to everyone here is just that regardless of what's kind of going on in Washington, we can all take actions here. You've heard a lot about a variety of organizations, but we can take individual actions every day. If we see something happening to someone, speak up, intervene, act. A friend of mine at Silverton High School, her son attends Silverton High School, this 2 days after the election, the first day, the day of the election, the day following the election, there were a bunch of people in large trucks with American flag, Confederate flag, Trump signs, harassing Latino students. Other students in Silverton High School telling Latino students that they would have to go home soon because it was Trump's world now. That parent wrote a letter to the principal, demanded to speak to the principal, put out a call to all parents there. And so that principal met with them that day and talked with them for over an hour about the expectations at the school, what the rules will be at the school, what will and will not be tolerated. And at least 5 students met every day at the front of the school to make sure that children entering the school felt safe and felt protected. Those are local people taking local actions, not waiting for someone to do it for them. And we can do that every day. So if you see something, get up. Get up, speak, help. If you see someone touch someone else in a manner that is not welcome, I've heard of women's scarves being removed, whether religiously affiliated or not. There was a transgender man who his spouse attended Willamette University that was being harassed and spat upon, and a woman just got up and came and sat with him until they left. But those sorts of things are against the law. That is assault. So be a witness, file a report, make sure that it is understood that those things will not be tolerated here in our community. Speak up at your institutions, speak up at your jobs, because those are actions that we can say. So as someone else spoke before about not being silent, don't be silent where it matters, and that's what we see every day. And if someone tells you that something is happening to them, believe them and act.
Hello, I'm going to keep this brief, 2 minutes tops. So my name is Laura. I'm coming to you as a queer white student at Willamette University, and I think it's pretty telling that in this room of, I'd say, around 50 community members, we have 5 Willamette students, and that's only because we have an amazing professor who told us about this event. And you know, we're literally a block down the street. There is absolutely no reason why this room shouldn't be filled with Willamette University students, because they are also community members. And I just kind of wanted to bring this forward because it's something that's very near and dear to my heart. I'm obviously a newcomer to the Salem community, and I don't know much about it, and I'd love to learn more. And I think a lot of students at Willamette feel the same way, but have issues reaching out to the community in general because, you know, reasons, life gets in the way. So I really wanted to bring the fact that we have Willamette University in the community and that we maybe need a little bit of help reaching out to the community, and that help would be welcome. And I also wanted to remind everyone of some of the things that the administration at Willamette University has been doing that affect the community. And I'm referencing specifically Willamette Academy, which some of you may know about, some of you may not. I'm not going to go into it in depth now, but suffice it to say that instead of making new ties with the community, Willamette University administration is breaking ties with the community because they're worried about their bottom line. They're most concerned about their salaries and about the money they're receiving. So if that's something that interests you, if that's something you want to get involved with, I'd love to help you with that. I'd love to be involved in the community as well, and I think it's great what we're doing here, and I'd love to see some more Willamette University students here. Thank you. So I'm not actually here representing any student organization. I'm here as a student in general. We do have the community of service learning at Willamette University, which does do outreach to this sort of thing, but it's I guess my main point is that community service is not pushed at Willamette University, and that I think we need a little bit of help with that. So if there's anyone you want to get in contact with, I'd start with the community of service learning, which I'm going to be involved with next semester, because if nothing else, this election has at the very least pushed me to be involved in my community. And I don't know if there's anything else you can take away from that. Maybe that's a small silver lining. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a question for me. Hello, my name is Alex. I grew up here in Salem. I went to elementary school here, middle school, and high school. Also went to community college. As someone who's grown up here in Salem, I may not be the usual looking person that comes up to these type of events, but I've been here just as long as any young adult here. But I'm here to talk about a problem here in Salem, the houseless community. And the last week was a very cold week, a very, very cold week, and we saw all the school closures and all the traffic alerts, but it's always really easy to forget about the houseless people, and it's even easier to demonize them. But I ask you one thing, when you demonize these people, do you ever ask yourself, are they happy? For whatever reason you demonize them. Happiness doesn't come to anyone who is panhandling. Just because they get a couple dollars on the side of the street doesn't makes them have an easy job, but they're not happy, opposed to anyone else. So as a worker at Latinos Unidos Siempre, I am the organizer. We have a very inspiring, intelligent youth, Ricardo Pablo, and he's going to talk to you guys about a program we're going to hopefully be working with soon.
All right, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, awesome. So my name is Ricardo. I am part of the Luz youth group. I hopefully will be taking the lead in this project that we're working on, which will be to help out the homeless. Oh, yeah. This on? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Oh, need to be closer. Sorry, shorter. Yeah, like I said, I will be hopefully the leader of this project that we'll be creating. Not only to help out the homeless community during this hard period of time, which is winter, because it's been 1 month in December and it's already been extremely cold. So we hope to make that easier for them, although we know we're not going to be able to help everyone. We do want to help as much as we can to make this hard period of time easier for them. But not only that, we also do want to help them to get out of that situation, to not have to be living in the streets for years and years to come. Because we can feed them and stuff like that, but that's just a simple and really short solution to their actual problem, which is homelessness. We need to help them to get out of the situation, to find a job, find a home, reunite them with family members. We need a little more than just giving them food, which is what the project that we, and hopefully I will be leading on, will be focusing on, not to just feed them, but to help them out in a more deeper level, I guess. And what we do just want to ask is for help, not only money, but contacts, different ways to help them, different, whatever help we can get from anyone, it's appreciated and it's welcome for us. So, yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for staying. We have one. What was the name of the project, sorry? H4H. What's it stand for? Home for Homeless? Hope for Homeless. Thank you. That's a great idea to have Gretchen come up, but I'm handing back over to Rose and Gretchen now.
Hi, I'm Gretchen. Thank you, Preetam. I'm the staff point of contact for the city's Human Rights and Relations Advisory Commission, and we're happy to help with concerns of discrimination. Phone number is 503-540-2371, or email is humanrights@cityofsalem.net.
Thank you, Gretchen. And thank you, Levy, for moderating this, and thank you all for staying. I'm sorry we're a little bit over time, but I think it's been worth it to hear from folks. So we're adjourned, and thank you for coming. And don't forget to do something.